And I want to begin with the value of grudges and slights. Clyde Drexler didn't do anything wrong, Michael. Somebody just had the audacity to say he was good at basketball and compare him to Michael. So that meant Michael had to smash him. How much, Michael, did you get the sense that Michael Jordan used these grudges as fuel to just to destroy?
I'm 100% certain of it, Scott. I remember going to Chicago early in the season, writing for the Washington Post, to do a story on Alonzo Mourning, because Alonzo scored a lot more than people thought he would coming out of college, out of Georgetown. And I go to the locker room pregame, and I'm asking Michael about Alonzo Mourning, and Michael's talking. He goes, "Wait a minute, you came home to your hometown and my town to write about a Georgetown kid?" And Michael loved getting on Georgetown. He loved, you saw it tonight. Patrick, Alonzo, he loved it. He loved getting on them. He loved them and respected them, but he wanted to crush them. And he said to me, you flew home. You came here in this locker room to ask me about Alonzo Mourning. What are you going to write in the Washington Post tomorrow if he has nothing? And I said, well, what do you mean nothing? He goes, what do you not understand about nothing? Well, when Alonzo Mourning, when Michael Jordan went out of the game because they were winning by like 30, Alonzo had 3 points. He'd been averaging 20-something. He had 3. But what you have to know about Michael is he also says, okay, after it's over, he's no longer angry, Scott. And he says, listen, don't ask me about Alonzo in front of everybody. Come on back, we'll talk about him. And I go back and I said, but you killed him. He goes, listen, he's going to be a great player. He's got this and this and this and this. But in that time, in that short time, he needed something to get himself going maybe that night. Maybe he wasn't angry as he drove in. And he needed something, which, the wrath of which I felt. And I love that about him. People get offended. I thought this is the essence of who he is. This separates him from everybody else.
Well, you know what, Wilbon, it sounds to me like you owe Zoe an apology, poor kid. You ruined his night. But, the thing with Drexler, I was actually talking to Danny Ainge this week, who was on that 92 team, Scott, and he said that he knew they were in trouble before that series even started because all the hype for Clyde and putting them on the same plane as Jordan. He said what made him realize that they were in trouble was Jordan was being very deferential, saying wonderful things about Clyde. And Danny said, and I knew him, and I knew what he was like, and I knew that this was the worst thing that could have possibly happened to us. And he also knew that night, game one, because no time like the present with Michael. You don't lie in wait. You do it right away. And, of course, it's 36 points to 19 points. And the series, it's all, for all intents and purposes, over that night. That's the way Jordan was fueled. Tony Kukoc did nothing to Jordan. It didn't matter. He couldn't play against Jerry Krause, so he took it out on Tony Kukoc. Some of these grudges were real. Some of them are imagined. But it doesn't matter because once it gets into Michael's head, it doesn't leave him until he crushes him. Same with Charles in the 93 finals. He was mad that Charles was the MVP. He thought he should have been the MVP.
Of course he was. And then there's the all-timer. There's the LeBradford Smith story, which we don't have time for tonight. But just wait for that one, kids, because that's something special. All right, so we just heard from Kobe. And the MJ Kobe thing, Jackie, to me feels a bit like Tiger Woods in this way. Tiger was not close to his contemporaries, but he has a special affinity for a lot of the younger players, many of whom he still competes against. Right. It feels a bit to me like Jordan and Kobe. How much does that jive with your sense of what you understand? Absolutely.
Jordan absolutely adored Kobe, and you saw the reaction he had at the funeral, and that was a very genuine, emotional response. And I think, too, if you look back to Jordan's rookie year and that All-Star game that you were talking about that he felt frozen out of, so he was going to talk trash to Kobe and try to beat him, but afterwards, what does he say to him? Hey, kid, call me anytime. And Kobe did. In fact, during the lockout shortened season, the 98-99 season, when they weren't playing, he called and spent an hour on the phone talking to Jordan about how to body up against bigger defenders, bigger, stronger guards. He was having trouble with that. And that started almost a 2-decade-long correspondence because all Kobe wanted to be was Michael. And Michael didn't mind it. He saw a lot of himself in Kobe.
Key phrase, Jackie, there being all the time. Kobe called him all the time. And there was this enormous respect. And each one of those guys, they were worried that people outside looking in would take it the wrong way, just going after each other a little bit. I remember a night, one of many, when I was waiting outside the Laker locker room and Kobe had some great game where he had like 45 and, 9 rebounds and whatever. And as he walked in the locker room, I got an elbow, and Kobe said, "What would your boy have done tonight?" old man, what would the old man have done tonight? What would he have done? And it was, and he would laugh, and I said, will you let me write about this? He'd say, no, nobody's going to understand it. And it was such joy that this was going to get back to Michael. And that relationship was closer, I think, than anybody understood, Jackie, until, as you said, you know, at the memorial, when Michael had the reaction he did and told the story about Kobe being a nuisance to a point as a little brother, there was such fondness on a daily basis there for years.
And just personally, I'm so grateful he allowed us in to see that, and that's something that I wrote about and we'll talk about a bit later in the show. And speaking of later in the show, there's so many layers to each episode, Michael. I want to get to this as a final thought for this week. The desire to get out of that environment, that bubble, was great for Jordan, and he did. But ultimately, the desire to be in the arena was greater, and he went back. Did you ever really buy that when The Last Dance ended, that was Jordan's last dance?
Wow. Scott, being a Chicagoan, I can't divorce myself from what he meant to the city and the culture, and I wanted him to come back. I guess I thought he would, or I hoped he would. It just didn't seem like he was finished, and he is such a student of the history of the game that I always thought some of the, I thought it was just maybe burnout. He's always said burnout is not the word he would use. I use that. But I thought there was something there that he could get the fire stoked again and get back by going to baseball, by going away for a while, and just glad he did. But I wasn't certain that he would.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.